Rewind to Raw is live. I am John Pollock, joined by the champ is here, Wai Ting. Hello, Wai.
Hey, John, how you doing? What's going on?
I'm doing great. I'm doing fantastic. I've got my decaf coffee all ready to go here.
Ooh,
I've got some water.
a decaf coffee and water. Okay.
You just never know. Some of these shows get a little lengthy. I need. I'm subconscious now because when I got sick earlier this year, there was one show where I nearly lost my voice, and it was almost gone. That's never happened to me. Never happened since, and never had happened before. But
Has it ever happened in your career? Have you ever had an instance where you've lost your voice for a broadcast or anything like that?
It's never happened, no. And
Wow.
apparently, it's I've heard from like people that have done commentary for a living that it's not a common occurrence. Honestly, one of the few times I can recall it is some of those lengthy pay-per-views where Michael Cole was just struggling by the end. But
Right.
you would think it would happen all the time, but I'm sure there's some science to it of project. In fact, there have been times that I've been very sick, but then when you have to start, somehow your body just goes into goes on automatic and you're fine.
It's that adrenaline.
Maybe.
I guess.
I always get an adrenaline rush when we go live.
Well, I mean, I'm assuming you've never had to call a 7-hour WrestleMania.
No, I'm not in that league, so I don't have any comparison point to that amount.
Maybe someday.
I had to call judo for quite a few hours.
Yeah, right. Back in Russia.
Yeah, my voice didn't go out there.
We had plenty of vodka, though, to keep you around. So,
Well, anyway, we have lots to discuss on this show, so that's me cutting out the small chat as we get into the real substance of the show. We have Raw to discuss. We have a bunch of news items, and off the top, though, in-house notes. Number one is the status for Post Wrestling Cafe members or prospective Cafe members. Patreon has come up with this revolutionary idea that when you sign up for the Post Wrestling Cafe, you will not be billed until 30 days, no matter when you sign up. You will have a 30-day cycle, whether you sign up on the first day of the month, the third day of the month, the 27th day of the month. If you sign up on October the 31st, you're not going to be billed the next day. You will be billed 30 days later. What a genius invention.
yeah, maybe just to clarify what you said, you will be charged upon signing up, but you will not be charged on the first of the month. How it used to work is, let's say somebody signed up on the 29th, they would get charged on that day, and then when the first would roll around, they would get charged again.
Oh, is that how it works?
That was how it worked before. Yeah,
That's right.
But now, if you sign up on the 29th, you don't get charged again for your next bill until the 29th. So you get your full 30 days or however long a month is, depending on the month. And that means you don't have to, wait till the first. And there's no disadvantage to signing up at any point.
Yes. So we don't have to hammer you home just once a month. We can hammer it over to you every single time that we are live. But it's always a great time to join the Post Wrestling Cafe. This week alone, we're going to have several shows coming your way, including Rewind Away on Tuesday night. We're going to continue our WCW reviews. We last did Starrcade 95. We're fast forwarding 6 months to the Great American Bash from June of 1996, featuring the Giant versus Lex Luger and Steve Mongo McMichael and Kevin Green against Ric Flair and Arn Anderson, as well as Kevin Nash and Scott Hall appearing at this pay-per-view to answer the hard-hitting question, do you still work for the WWF?
I can't wait.
Yes. We will also have some notes, including the back and forth between WCW and Jerry McDevitt over this contentious issue of using the insinuation that WWF characters have taken over WCW. Some hilarity courtesy of the Nitro book. So that will be coming out on Tuesday.
There's also a Dean Malenko versus Rey Mysterio in Rey Mysterio's first WCW match on this show. So man, get the full breadth of the man's North American television, national television career by listening to this show and then listening to Tuesday's Great American Bash 96 review.
Of course, She-Hulk is chugging along as the season is beginning to wind down. Is this way? I know you're only casually following She-Hulk. Is it at the level of The Bear?
No. No, it is not. No.
You finished the season, correct?
Oh yeah, yeah. There aren't many things like on the level of the Bear. Like yeah, as much as a fan I am of the MCU. Yeah.
So last night, right before I recorded with WH, me and my
Yeah.
wife, I said, I've got like a half hour before I've got to record. You want to get one show in? We watched episode 7.
Okay. Okay.
Tw-
I knew you were going to talk about this. And spoiler alert, if you're not going to,
I'm not going to
if
spoil
you're
anything.
gonna watch
I'm
it.
not going to talk about anything.
But I was the same way, John. And like, these episodes are typically what, like 40 minutes or something?
Not even under that.
Right, sure. But this one in particular was like I saw in the guide, it's like 20 minutes. I'm like, oh, a 20-minute episode. What the hell? Come on. I sectioned off 30 minutes at least for this. You watch this thing, you understand
Jesus.
why it's 20 minutes. It's a masterpiece.
I needed to like balance myself. I was so stressed for these 20 minutes.
Oh yeah. Did you rewatch it? Because I did. Like, and I don't even rewatch things anymore these days. Like,
I'll
but,
probably, I've had no time to ever go back. It's an episode that will absolutely stick with me, that I will certainly go and rewatch. It was a phenomenal 20 minutes of television.
It's incredible. It's fantastic. Yeah. Yeah. But just the production of it, I really would love to.
It
know
was
a bit
incredible.
more.
I kind of knew the concept going in, so I was watching it with that alertness to it. But
Right.
I would love to watch it again because I'm processing what I'm watching. And it's just, I mean, one of the most stressful 20 minutes, but brilliant. Just tremendous. So I'm looking forward. I have one more episode left.
It's a great show, and I'm pretty sure they're coming back for a second season. So, yeah, high recommendation.
Okay, last couple of plugs. Friday, we're going to be doing something different because Bound for Glory is Friday night. Myself and John Cena will be doing a post show after Bound for Glory. That will be the bonus show for Post Wrestling Cafe members. So for this week only, a free edition of Rewind to SmackDown, as Wai Ting and Kate from Montreal will cover SmackDown, the season premiere from Worcester. They will cover Rampage and Battle of the Belts 4. Because Wai just sits around all day. He has nothing to do, and he has plenty of hours to just sit back, kick his feet up, and watch 4 hours of wrestling and then chat about it with you, the people, before he goes to bed and sleeps for 13, 14 hours after.
Babies don't really, like once there's multiple wrestling shows on, they're like, you take a break. I'm just going to sleep through the whole night. Don't bother me. It's just sort of a natural instinct they have. So, yeah, I'll be fine.
That is Friday's offering for you. And then Saturday night, Wai and I come back together for the Extreme Rules post show. What a weekend we have ahead of us.
It's a busy next few days. So
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving to you and all of the Canadians out there. But yeah, if you're enjoying the work, especially we're only talking about the audio and not everything that, is even going to go up on the site, in which we have a number of incredible contributors helping us with. So support the channel, sign up at postwrestlingcafe.com, or if you prefer YouTube, video.postwrestling.com.
Yes, check out all of that. And again, postwrestlingcafe.com. Anytime you sign up is a great time. Antonio Inoki, we're not going to spend too much time on this because we did spend quite a bit on Friday's Rewind to SmackDown, reacting to his passing. And then WH Park and I did a whole show on him on Sunday night. WrestleNomics also covering his passing as well. There's just like an overall observation way, a ton of coverage for Antonio Inoki. There was a feature written in the New York Times, like all your major outlets covering this. And it was, I think, a combination. Obviously in Japan, you knew this was going to be a major passing when it occurred. But I think in the US, it's a lot of it is the Ali fight, but it's also his political career. It's, just all these different chapters attached to his career that has gotten, worldwide focus on his death.
Agreed. Honestly, it's the type of attention that has surprised me because, not to just even say it about somebody more well known on in a different country as part of another sort of culture, but just as a professional wrestler, it really does tell me how much the man transcended just the sport of professional wrestling.
Did you happen to see that video that was shot of him a week before he died?
Mm-mm. They
were in his hospital room, and he's so frail. And I guess he wanted to get some video message out. It was dated September 22nd. So this is, he dies. It's September 30th for us, October 1st in Japan, but you can do the time. And it was just sad. I mean, he was talking about, just the state he was in, that, there was a time he wouldn't have wanted people to see him like this. He had this message about, just pollution in the earth and making sure to throw away your trash. Like that was his message. But then when they said like how he noted that his he doesn't have a partner to talk with during the day, so he spends his time in the hospital just counting spots on the ceiling. Like it was just, It was really sad just to hear him in these, final days of his life. Just someone that you associate just as big, powerful figure, both physically and just in terms of importance as well. And it was just a sad video that I just saw circulating around. But definitely, the coverage has been immense. This is somebody that I feel if you have the right person to really go through the true story of Antonio Inoki, because there's a lot of fiction in Antonio Inoki's life as well, and scandal as well that myself and WH went into. But there's a tremendous documentary, there is a tremendous book, I think, on Antonio Inoki, and there's some great stuff out there that I dove into over the weekend. I definitely recommend Josh Gross's book, a lot of the back issues of The Observer, especially right after his retirement in 1998. But yeah, there's a lot of great material out there. But he is among the most important figures in the history of professional wrestling. That is not hyperbole. And I don't know if you will see somebody that will just have this scope of influence over many different industries that came around at a time when mixed martial arts was so in its infancy. And in Japan, it's just interesting to see how much that Ali fight is attached to his legacy, when at the time, I mean, it was a joke that Muhammad Ali was taking part in this, and even the immediate aftermath, it was this disastrous fight. But as time has gone on, it's this blip in Muhammad Ali's legacy, but in Japan, it's now celebrated as the unofficial birth of mixed martial arts. And for Antonio Inoki, it's this celebrated moment instead of one that's frowned upon. But it was one that, it did. The card itself did like a 46 rating in Japan back in 1976. I mean, it was an enormous fight and aired in closed circuit over here. But I think that is a lot of people's attachment of that generation when they first became really well known of who Antonio Inoki was this spectacle in 76.
Is there, another, I would say maybe non-American or North American or Western world figure that you feel would receive this amount of press in professional wrestling if they were to pass?
I mean, at this stage, I think you're going to be looking at figures that had such a significant run in Japan. And I think about the likes of a Terry Funk, of an Abdullah the Butcher, of Tiger Jeet Singh, but not at the scope of Antonio Inoki. Inoki was in that class of an El Santo, of a Giant Baba, not at the level of Ricky Dozan, but I mean, to a generation, they would probably have Inoki kind of in close proximity there. But I mean, that's kind of your number one and number two when it comes to massive Japanese professional wrestling figures in the country. But it's a small list. Like when you start to look at some of those figures that cross over so many different generations and go back so many decades, sadly, not as many of them are around. That's unfortunately the cycle of life. But yeah, there's few that are going to come to the level of Inoki, and I can't think of an equal. Like certainly here, Vince McMahon, it's, there's a lot of comparisons between Inoki and Vince McMahon that you can make. And Vince McMahon will have a ton more attention in the US, and probably worldwide, but Inoki's it's pretty strong when you see all of the coverage in just different outlets that dedicated space to his passing over the weekend. Sports Business Journal, they put out a note. We had mentioned on Friday. It was stated on SmackDown. It was their best first day of ticket sales in Royal Rumble history. Well, Sports Business Journal stating over 25,000 tickets sold for the Royal Rumble at the Alamo Dome. So a very successful advance for the Royal Rumble that is coming up at the end of January. As we're approaching, a year of this kind of shift to not exclusively Saturday night pay-per-views, but generally by and large, Saturdays have become the new night for WWE. I think it's been a successful switch, and especially for live events, I think in particular the city, that seems to work a lot more for if you want to travel to some of these shows, having a Saturday night show as opposed to a Sunday. Do you think there's something to that?
I would think so. Like, yeah, nobody wants to take an extra day off just to kind of fly back or at least drive back or something like that. I think it actually makes a whole lot of sense, and it makes me wonder why it wasn't considered before. Because what is the disadvantage?
I guess you just look at what's going on it. Sunday has just been our traditional night if you're professional wrestling. But I think you've learned that, yeah, there's, you have college football games on Saturday. You have, you have other sports. There's always a UFC going on. But I think like WWE, they've sort of carved out their spot where their audience is going to find them on a different night. And it's tough because we're not seeing specific numbers. We just get these sort of, this percentage growth over last year on Peacock, but those would be very, very interesting numbers. And as the NFL has started running on Amazon Prime, Nielsen is now detailing those numbers on Thursday nights. And I wonder if we do get to a space where streaming gets more monitored as opposed to now where it's kind of this veil of secrecy about what these specific numbers are on streaming services as compared to the transparency we get for regular television. I think it is going in that direction. It would be very interesting to see, actual numbers that they're doing on Peacock. I'm sure it's very, very strong numbers, but will that growth continue now that it's year-over-year comparisons of being on Peacock itself?
There's no doubt that, like, I imagine Saturday would be more competitive for people, choosing to stay at home versus maybe a Sunday night. But UFC has gotten away with it throughout its entire history. Perfectly fine.
Daniel Cormier has been added to Extreme Rules. We'll talk a bit about more of this during the Raw review, but what was your overall thought way to Cormier being added as the special referee for the Fight Pit match? A man who you and I interviewed the Friday going into WrestleMania 31, and he seemed very much convinced about his man Seth Rollins when we interviewed him, and then Rollins ends up cashing in that Sunday at WrestleMania.
And a video at this point that I think of as
which
pretty
he brought
legendary.
up.
Yeah, his reaction, to seeing Seth Rollins cash in, legitimately his favorite wrestler. So, the announcement of this, I think, is just maybe another step in seeing, the Levesque, at least creative administration, maybe even the Nikon administration, taking a further step into trying to get WWE into the same conversation as pay-per-view boxing or UFC. And not to say this wouldn't have happened under Vince, but it seems like it's a bit more of a move in line with some of the other moves that this current administration has made. And I like it. You're trying to sell this thing as MMA without necessarily calling it MMA. It's a fight pit match, right? And I can't really think of too many people better than a Daniel Cormier if you're going to trust, in a bit of a speaking role, somebody with a name, somebody who is considered very much a legend. They could have called Kane, but I don't know. Something tells me even Cormier is better than, Kane, at least for this particular option, especially with the Rollins connection.
Well, are you talking about Cain Velasquez?
Yeah. Oh, never mind.
Yeah,
Jeez, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
that's my second faux pas in less than a week.
Yeah,
that's not happening anytime soon.
That's why his second landmine he's stepped on in the last week was not going to be Cain Velasquez.
I've been away for a while, everybody. I've been
in the spot.
Very much locked in.
Do you see this being more than a one-off for Daniel Cormier? Because I think that's the natural speculation is that, you have some of these big shows coming up with Brock Lesnar, and Brock has nothing. This would be the ideal opponent if Daniel Cormier is interested. I think WWE would be doing moonsaults to have Daniel Cormier involved. Because, what big matches do you have for Brock on the horizon?
Man, the fact that we're getting Logan Paul, getting a title match at this point, I'm positive that they've, already entertained this conversation with Cormier, probably for years already at this point. But up until this point in time, you tell me, John, like, where is he at, contractually, health-wise? What time does he have to offer to pursue a career like this? What do you think?
He's 43 years old. I think he would certainly have the interest to do it maybe once. him and Brock are very friendly. And I think that would be, they did that angle back in 2018 and never got to put the fight together. But that was very much the direction that they were, Cormier was certainly hoping for, if you remember, and then ended up, taking the fight with Derek Lewis. But contractually, I mean, he's retired. I don't think he'd be bound by any limitations from his association with the UFC to do a match here or there. And you would certainly look at him, like Brock to me would be the automatic pick. And whether that's Saudi Arabia.
Is that the first match you do?
Well, I look at it this way. It feels like Brock is in a very similar role to, if you remember back in 2016, and he does the Randy Orton match. And if you remember, they were teasing and talking about Brock and Shane McMahon for the next year. And then they bring Bill Goldberg back and they do the Survivor Series match, and that takes them to WrestleMania. And to me, if I was Brock, Cormier would be a very, you can't do another Roman match. And as long as Roman is locked on this title, I mean, Brock is kind of exhausted from that picture. You sort of want to look for a detour, and Daniel Cormier would be an enticing detour. And I think you could do something really similar where you do Cormier overwhelms him, wins the first match in stunning fashion, and then you build to a rematch. And I think you could do that as an idea.
I think obviously, he's an incredible athlete, and I think we know that people that are high level amateur wrestlers, especially or people that are in MMA, I think have enough tools to for you to craft a match out of. But I almost wonder if you kind of sneak him in a little bit, with a little bit lower stakes first, like a tag match of some sort. Just kind of dip his foot in the water, maybe build that up a little bit, because the Brock fight, if that Brock match, if it were to happen, feels like so much of a culmination. Where do you go after? And what if the match is no good? Then there's no rematch. At least the audience wouldn't want to see it.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting. I think that's what everyone's going to be looking at. Maybe even not this Sunday. Maybe if you shoot that angle, you wait for television. But I mean, Brock, he is advertised. You would certainly assume he's on that Saudi Arabia card. And I mean, what do you have for Brock? You need to pretty much come up with something from scratch for Brock, which Logan you can Paul. Manage to do. But
Logan Paul, Bad Bunny, take your pick.
Logan Paul's booked. He's got his Saudi Arabia dance partner. So maybe Jake Paul's around. 1 week after Anderson Silva, he goes for Brock. Friday night numbers. SmackDown kind of came back down to earth with still a good number, 2,207,000 viewers and a 0.54 in the demo, down 13 and 14% respectively from last week. But the big spike they had last week was 18-34, and it came down 32%. But still, even with this drop, they were number one among network programs and second on all of television behind a college football game on ESPN. But it certainly felt way, and I think accurately attributing last week's success to all of the 923 hype. And when they didn't get a delivery on that tease, I think that the clues now, they might be fun to follow, but I don't know if you're going to spike a number unless it's very explicitly stated that you are getting Bray Wyatt on this date at this time to let people tune in. But for 1 week, it certainly drove people to that specific quarter.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose this sort of data will let us, believe that last week's aberration, it really points to nothing else but the Bray Wyatt thing. But I'm still just kind of even surprised at that. The fact that,
or it was the Braun and Otis match that he's not getting enough credit.
Yeah. But no, I think this is a very smart audience, first of all, for being able to decipher these codes to know that, hey, 923 on 923, I should probably watch this show. I also think that they're very aware of how professional wrestling presents itself, and that when there are teases to take seriously and teases that you don't need to take seriously. Do you think that Saturday is a tease people are going to learn to take seriously?
I will answer that question after you decode tonight's QR codes, because gotcha. I don't know what tonight's codes meant, and if that
once you learn the Predator language, you will give me an answer.
Dude, I've skimmed through this and I have deferred to Wai to explain all of this. Okay. Rampage on Friday did 472,000 viewers and a 0.16 in 18-49. So compared to both hours of Grand Slam last week, they were down 10% in viewers, 6% in 18-49. But like SmackDown, also taking a a drop 30% among 18 to 34. 18 to 34s, they had a lot other pressing issues on Friday night than watching 3 hours of professional wrestling. But they were 9th on cable for the night, behind the 2 college football games and a soccer game that aired actually before they went live on the air. So I would honestly state that this was actually a number that it was not all that different from 2 weeks ago, which is maybe a fairer comparison. But when I saw this lineup on just looking at the spoilers, I thought like this lineup, this is not an enticing card on paper with like Roosh and John Silver. You did have a tag title defense, but it was at least in line with Rampage numbers, but a come down from Grand Slam, which was expected.
Yeah. I mean, I don't necessarily know if it was a card booked to, garner a big rating to match what Grand Slam offered. I mean, the Acclaimed are a draw, but they were hardly in a match that I think was heavily promoted, nor like did anybody have any, I don't know, feeling that either of those other teams had a chance of winning. It was a pretty by the numbers Rampage and what looked to be a pretty by the numbers rating.
If you can just leave this graphic up, Way, and if you were to break this down, this photo with the rule of thirds, what would you grade this poster if I put it together? Would you tell me it's too busy, John? What would your notes be? What would your words of encouragement be?
I mean, I think it depends on the purpose, like they have various versions, and this is the type of version that I think you want to convey every single element of the show.
This is too much to me. It's like you're trying to give importance to everything. It's so much is coming at me at this. It's overwhelming, but not in a good way.
Yeah, I will say William Morris, W. Morrissey, and maybe Billy Gunn don't necessarily need to be on, but I mean, it's the type of thing that you give or you show a person if they want to know exactly what's on the show, who exactly is going to appear. So
if you saw the Grand Slam poster from the week before, this is nothing. So I mean, like if you're on the show, they're getting you on the image. So it's some busy graphics in the AEW department. So for Canadian fans, my favorite thing to tweet about is Rampage and TSN, and then I get responses from people who assume I control what TSN airs, and they get so upset with me. So this is what's happening on TSN's schedule this week. They do have Rampage and Battle of the Belts airing like normal Friday night on the website and streaming on TSN Direct. They are also listing Battle of the Belts to air Saturday night at 11 on TSN 5. But then the following Friday, they will be streaming the Rampage that is in Toronto in the normal time slot, and then at 11 p.m. Eastern time, so on a 1 hour delay, it will air on TSN 2. And people asking, does this mean Rampage is permanently airing on Friday nights? TSN told me that it's just a one-off on October 14th for the Canadian episode of Rampage. So this is not a sign of things to come unless they, make a change. But as of now, it's just a one-off on October 14th. So if you stream the show, it's going to air like normal at 10 Eastern that night, but it's on TV, but on an hour delay on that Friday night at 11.
So it's kind of useless for people like you and I.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. Some people, I mean, it's good for AEW, I suppose, to for people who don't usually watch Rampage to flip through the channels and see, oh, I thought this was a Wednesday show. It's on Fridays as well. What is it? What more can I see? Where else can I see this? But I don't even know why. Like, is there that much of a clamoring for this Canadian edition of Rampage that, like, they needed to move things to broadcast it an hour later at 11? It makes no difference to me.
When it comes to the actual ticket sales, like Dynamite went right away. They put all the tickets they put on sale were gone, and WrestleTix has that number at just under 7,000. AEW had told me it was scaled for 8,000, but WrestleTix very reliable with like their numbers and such. But regardless of the number, the second night, Rampage, they still have tickets remaining. And do you think part of that is one night is enough? Or do you feel that with Rampage, it's okay, it's a 1 hour program. What else am I getting? And is it going to be of substance to go for an hour? And you assume that the rest is going to be, inconsequential matches or just too much of a crapshoot that if I don't have Dynamite tickets, I'm not going to Rampage.
I think it's very much both of those things. I mean, a night out for a lot of people gets to be expensive, especially if you're coming from out of town, for instance, perhaps. It's a weekday. Dynamite is the flagship, and once you've got an experience with the flagship, how can that be? Um, how can the B show, which has been firmly established at this point, how can that exceed the first night? So it's because Rampage at this point I think is very clearly been the supplement, the non-essential show.
I think it'll help if they, on that Friday before, they announce like some big match for Rampage.
Absolutely.
And it'll also be interesting what kind of media attention they get that week to kind of push last minute ticket sales and get kind of that run up that we see sometimes with AEW, kind of that last minute push, because you're getting Danielson and Jericho on the first night, but that's the sold out show. So it's going to be night 2 that we will see how much spotlight they put on that. Quickly for this week, NXT is back Tuesday night. It's they're back to a live format after 2 weeks of taped shows with Von Wagner against Andre Chase. The winner will be added to the ladder match at Halloween Havoc. Toxic Attraction against Elba Fire, Zoe Stark, and Nikita Lyons. Pretty Deadly will deliver a State of the Commonwealth address. The Grayson Waller Effect with guests Roxanne Perez and Cora Jade. And the Brawling Brutes will appear on the show. Sheamus, Pete Dunne / Butch, and Ridge Holland, who I'm sure will come back to a hero's welcome at the Capitol Wrestling Center.
Okay. Yeah, it'll be interesting. So these are these are the new ones.
Yes, this is a live show on Tuesday night. So we will see if they have made any alterations to the building as well. Like last year, they came back after that break and it was all reconfigured and such.
2.0. Yeah, I want to see if they have a new set. Are we getting a full black and gold, or is it still this sort of rainbow with a little bit of black and gold?
Dynamite on Wednesday night, they have added several matches. So I think we're up to 7 matches for the 3-year anniversary card on Wednesday. Jericho and Sammy Guevara against Bryan Danielson and Daniel Garcia. Wardlow defending the TNT title against Brian Cage. Hangman Page versus Roosh. A 6-woman tag as Tony Storm teams with Athena and Willow Nightingale against Jamie Hayter, Serena Deeb, and Penelope Ford. MJF versus Wheeler Yuta. Jay Lethal versus Darby Allin. Luchasaurus will be in action. And National Scissoring Day with the Acclaimed and Billy Gunn, which this will be a very busy image.
Yeah. How do you show scissoring on an image that you can share?
That's 23 people accounted for in what I just listed.
Well, that's a pretty typical edition of AEW Dynamite, isn't it?
Billy Gunn, they can promote the only cable program to feature Billy Gunn over the next week.
Okay, there it is.
They made it very clear on Raw tonight. You'll get Road Dogg, you'll get Sean Waltman, Billy Gunn. I think I'm sure that they're going to just have fun and recognize I'm sure they will allude, if not outright, refer to Billy Gunn. Maybe they'll have someone play Billy Gunn. Maybe they'll come out with Bart Gunn.
That would be different. Yeah.
Okay, let's keep moving. Royal Quest 2 took place over the weekend. They're not up on New Japan World yet. So I imagine most people listening to this, unless they attended live, have not got to see these shows. Should we mention results or just overall thoughts?
I mean, spoiler alert, everybody. If you're going to plan on holding off on knowing about the results to Royal Quest for, I don't know, like how long? When is this going to be up?
October is what they said.
Okay, if you're going to wait, then sure, wait. But otherwise, let's talk about it.
Well, I'm just going to talk about the main events. The first night, everyone was raving about the tag match between FTR and Aussie Open that FTR won. And afterward, Will Ospreay called this the greatest tag match he had ever seen. And Dax Harwood tweeted that it might have been their best tag match ever, which covers some ground just this year alone. So it went 32 minutes, and if you are going to seek out a show, this is the kind of response you want to hear coming out of a card, because, by this point, we are 48 hours removed from this first night. And, just look at this week of how much stuff is coming up. It just goes by so quickly. And we will see whenever they get these up. But it sounds like it was a hell of a main event on the first night. And then night 2 saw Tetsuya Naito beating Zack Sabre Jr. So that sets up a rematch between Ospreay and Naito, which I thought was I thought it was among the best matches of the entire G1. So only this is where it gets confusing. Like, if they're going to do Ospreay and Naito next Monday Friday at the Sumo Hall show, and this hasn't even aired yet. That's where it gets kind of all over the place.
I mean, it's sort of like, non-linear storytelling, John. It's kind of like Memento. You get the result of the last one. Maybe they'll play the match backwards. Okay. And then we'll
wake up with tattoos and have to go backwards. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No,
that's a different
trying
play
something
on this.
different. But no, you're absolutely right. For a show that people are going to have to wait to see. You better be promising something that's worth people's while to wait. And I don't know exactly what a basis of comparison is for Will Ospreay's star scale, but I have to imagine a 5-star rating from Will Ospreay means quite a bit. So even if there is a bit of bias with his stablemates in there.
And the last note here is that over the weekend, it was announced, we already knew that Ricky Steamboat is coming out of retirement, and he's going to have a 6-man tag on November 27th for Big Time Wrestling in Raleigh, North Carolina, teaming with the aforementioned FTR to take on Jay Lethal, who I guess is just doing the coming out of retirement circuit, teaming with Brock Anderson and a mystery partner with Arn Anderson in their corner. So Ricky Steamboat, his last match, it actually wasn't the Jericho matches in 2009. He did do a tag match with his son, who at one time was, a promising prospect in FCW, but since left the industry in 2010. And then if you recall, Ricky Steamboat had that like brain aneurysm that year. So he's coming out of retirement, and, he is one where, I mean, he is held in such high regard by people for his skill set. And this will obviously be a tough match to do, but it's in the kind of environment where he does not have to do the heavy lifting, to be sure.
Let the speculation begin. Who is this mystery partner for the other side? So obviously, okay, let's go through it. Jay Lethal, I mean, Brock Anderson with Arn Anderson. You have Jay Lethal, I suppose. Well, he's in his Black Machismo get up here, but I mean, we could be seeing him playing like some sort of surrogate role for Flair. Who's the mystery man? Or woman?
It could be
could
a
it be a
woman
Blanchard?
Too. Geez, I don't know. I'm trying to look at the cutout here. Like who could it be? Looks like it's Bob Holly.
Yeah, you think Bob Holly's coming out of retirement? Is there anybody else coming out of retirement, John, that this could be?
I don't know. I don't know how far we're pushing this. We're a 69-year-old here, and Ricky Steamboat is coming out of retirement. I don't know. It's the Ric Flair one was one where I was not as concerned going into that match, but then when I watched the match, it was extremely alarming, and I just hope this one is done in a safe manner.
So it says here the group is being built as Arn Anderson's 4 horsewomen. Okay, but it says Jay Lethal as Black Machismo. Now I don't know why he would play Black Machismo if he's going to be a horseman. Brock and then a mystery partner. So it's got to be somebody related, or somebody horseman like.
Okay. Well, it's a small list of horsemen that would be available to do such a match, or
second generation
Paul Roma.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. Yeah. Could it be Brian Pillman Jr.?
It could be anyone. Yeah, I don't know if Brian Pillman Jr. is a mystery opponent type.
Yeah, I wouldn't know either. But you need some intrigue, right? So yeah, take your guess.
There you have it. You have some intrigue.
Brian says in the chat room, because Steamboat feuded with Savage. Yeah, that makes sense. Perfect. Maybe they'll do some of those spots. That'll be fun.
Yeah. I think that'll be cool. The idea. Yeah.
But he's not a horseman. Okay.
He is for that night.
All right. Cool.
All of your news can be found up at postwrestling.com. We will now move over to Raw from, where were they? At the XL Energy Center in St. Paul, Minnesota on Monday night. And we started off with the Judgment Day coming out, and they were promoting Daniel Cormier with the news broken by Ariel Helwani, getting multiple mentions on this show for breaking this news. And Balor cuts a promo that he is going to prove to Edge he doesn't belong anywhere near a ring and will force him to quit. The crowd starts chanting, "Who's your daddy?" And I imagine both Shingo Takagi and El Phantasmo were both just so jealous, hoping that they can get such a reaction next week. And Dominik says, "I'll tell you exactly who my daddy is, and it's not Rey Mysterio." And then the words I never thought I would hear, just poison to my ears. Jefe, I hate you. You lied to me my entire life. I have a new family now, thanks to the Judgment Day. Would you ever say such a thing to your Jefe, Wai? Even under performance.
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think I could ever say such mean words, I'm also 38 years old, so I don't really talk like a teenager.
Balor then warns AJ. He offered him an olive branch. Don't make me do bad things. And then Styles and Ray come out and they charge the ring. And they made note that Edge is off doing promotion in Philadelphia and therefore is not at Raw tonight.
Hey, and we joke, but I love Dominik's spot here. I mean, I don't know if I'm watching it based on in an ironic way, or I don't think I am. I truly think I am enjoying this story, and I'm enjoying Dominik's role here. I thought he did a good job here countering the "Who's your daddy" chance. He prepped and had a great comeback for it. I hate you, Dad. It's such a it's such a rebellious teen line. So I think the suggestion is still very much there that this is a little boy playing a grown-up, which is great.
Yeah. I mean, he's got to also navigate the little boy playing a pro wrestler at the same time. And because I think that is a hurdle for some fans to see him in a serious role. But I think so far, he has adapted well into the group, and you do have the match at the end of this whole thing to build to. And from there, it will be, once he is eventually detached from Ray, that is where you're not going to necessarily have the safety net. But I don't think you can knock Dominik's performances so far since the turn and what it's done for him. He had gotten very stale in the role as, the son teaming with Dad, that they had done about as much as you could over 2 years.
Agreed. Yeah, and he's helped. He's given Judgment Day and Rhea, in particular, I think a lot of more interest. So Dominik at this point is 25. Do you know how old Rey Mysterio was during the Great American Bash in 1996?
Oh, he would have been younger than 25.
He was 21, dude.
Wow.
He made his WCW debut when he turned 21. Crazy.
Wow. Yeah. Didn't cut any promos on his Jefe though in 1996.
Yeah.
Well, we will talk about that more on Tuesday night. Ray and AJ versus Damian Priest and Finn Balor. Ray goes for a springboard reverse crossbody and misses Damian Priest. And Corey says how Ray is not functioning properly. When do you ever see him miss that? And I can tell you, whenever I had ever had arguments with my dad, my reverse cross game was always a little off kilter as well. This can really affect the father-son dynamic when you're going for those reverse cross bodies that you used to hit like nothing.
It's the first thing to go usually. Yeah.
You got to drop those grudges.
Yeah.
Balor does the Three Amigos deal, and so we get the heat on Ray. Then they tag AJ. They get the heat on AJ through the commercial break, and then AJ fights back. Ray approaches Ripley on the floor, and Dominik goes onto his knees, daring Daddy Jefe to hit him. And Ray instead gets dropped with a Rhea Ripley clothesline, and AJ is left in the ring, no help from Ray, and he is hit with the coup de grace in 11:02 by Finn Balor. Ray comes to check on AJ, who argues with him. Ray, just the ultimate nice guy, apologizes. You're damn right, it's your fault. And he shoves down Ray, and then the Judgment Day jumps AJ. So Ray's life is a mess. That's the conclusion at the end of this match.
Yeah, I thought they were all building to, like a real more kind of significant Ray, AJ, Edge team up, and they could still be doing that, but we're at least seeing some tension here with just Rey Mysterio kind of being portrayed as woe's me, everything in my life is going wrong, everybody in my life is turning on me type of thing, which can be interesting. Yeah. So this whole thing has to end with Ray decking Dominik, doesn't it? Right? And that moment that they're building up to when, Dominik is goading Ray to beat him and Ray finally does something. That's going to be a huge reaction. A man beating his son.
The 619 to his son.
Wow. What does he stand?
Can't come back from that.
No. That's plenty of relationships are ruined via 619.
Yeah. I think the next chapter is Dominik unmasking his father, taking the mask for himself.
Really? You think they'll ever do that? Unmask Ray on WWE? Because it's, to me, so like not that significant. You know, we all know what.
No,
it looks
but
like.
I think it'll be treated as such. Within the body of the program, I think if you build it up well, it'll still be. It's not the hardest face to find of Rey Mysterio. Bobby Lashley arrives earlier in the day and he's pretty much asked by Kevin Patrick, "You're doing great as champion." Yep, but I'm not going to become complacent. It's the man that makes the title, and I want to face someone with as much hustle as me. So Mustafa Ali hustles his way in, and he goads Lashley into a match, demanding it, but doesn't get a title match out of it. It's a non-title match that they have later.
So. Well, come on. You can't just hand them out like nothing.
You could. You do hand out title shots at will, but not enough here from Mustafa Ali. Sami Zayn and Jimmy Uso are joking around. Solo Sikoa just standing by, and then in comes Jay, and he's pissed. He says, "We're here for business." And they walk up to the Street Profits and alert them that next week Roman Reigns and the Bloodline are going to be on Raw. They're like, cool. We're on SmackDown and Raw every week. We see them plenty. And we reveal that Montez Ford is in a walking boot, and Sikoa then challenges Angelo Dawkins for a match later tonight that I totally forgot about until we got to the third hour. And I was like, what do they have left for the remaining 45 minutes of this show?
Yeah, plenty of wrestling on this show as always. I mean, they announced 6 matches. Like, well, actually, 5 matches, 1 contract signing in this thing, and then they kept adding more. So yeah, a lot of wrestling on this show. Fine trash talk between all these guys.
Lashley took on Mustafa Ali. The big spot was Mustafa Ali hitting a 450 splash onto Bobby Lashley's left arm that they feared was broken. I was waiting for Aaron Pico's corner to come try and fix Bobby Lashley's arm. Did you see this clip over the weekend?
No.
So Aaron Pico, in the first round, he dislocates his shoulder, and they're concerned that he might have broken his clavicle. So he goes to his corner and is pretty much like, get my arm back into place. And dude, his corner takes his arm, and they are just pulling at this arm so hard. It was so uncomfortable to watch. They would not allow the fight to continue after this, so it ends. But you have to watch this video. I linked to it in my update today. You can find the link.
So they attempted. How long did they try to
go to my update and find the link. It's near the bottom in the MMA section on the Bellator paragraph, and I linked to the video. You need to watch this in real time. Like this is why I always say, God, these shows go so long, and it's always my fault.
Oh, we're going 3 hours at this point, I'm sure, but that's okay. No, but describe the context for me. So this guy fights, dislocates his arm, goes back to his corner. He's like, you got to put this back. Like
he essentially was, leaving it to his corner, who are not necessarily, I would imagine, have their degrees in medical health for this kind of procedure to be done mid-fight.
I mean, I'm sure he's, in his mind, it played like a very heroic moment. I don't want to get flagged on YouTube, so I'll just watch this by myself, okay? Holy shit. Oh, my goodness. Oh, my God. What the fuck? Oh, this is...
Do you know how painful a separated shoulder is? Like, this guy's got to be on pure adrenaline at this point to not just be wincing in pain.
Oh, my God. And he's checking it to see that it's... Oh, man. This should not be allowed.
This was a good call. And
what the fuck? He was going to get knocked out just from this guy putting his shoulder in. Oh, this is... So then the ref just stepped in. And
I think they asked him to put his arm above his head, and he couldn't. And they're like,
okay, that's gross.
This is the greatest promotion for my news update.
Thank you, John.
So my point being, Bobby Lashley had a much better recovery process than Aaron Pico did, because by the end of this match, he was using the arm for the hurt lock and, throwing him off his shoulders. He sold the arm for a bit. Ali mounts a comeback, but then he's tossed into the timekeeper's area after being run into the post, beats the count at 9, spear and hurt lock, and Ali goes out in 11:29.
Right. Yes. Now, even though Lashley won pretty emphatically, I mean, I thought this was a match very much designed to get people to pay attention to Mustafa Ali again. The man has new tights, shiny new flash, kind of like pleathery Chicago style tights, and the man's got a new look. He's got braids, like some cornrows in there. So, he's looking good. And then he had a match where he essentially had to, step up to the unbeatable champion and had him like at least, thinking that his arm might have needed popping back in for a brief second. And they had Ali, refuse to tap to the hurt lock.
Yeah, they did mention he went out instead of tapping. So
yeah. So I get the sense that this is an actual, I would hope, push for Mustafa Ali at this point. They made Lashley look dominant. I mean, it's, Ali is always going to be an underdog, but can they get people to care now after so many different attempts, so many false starts? I don't know.
I think it's going to be tough. I mean, he's a really talented guy, but you have had a lot of start and stops with this guy. Remember that Miz feud when they brought him back, and it was the idea that, oh, we're going to get serious about Ali, and you realize within several weeks this is just the latest.
I will say, people that can promo, I think will always like have a big advantage. I mean, if you're big, you have a big advantage. But if you're small, but if you can talk, I think there's always at least, you can always talk yourself back into people's interest.
He's got to re-hook up with that editor of his and go do some promos at night outside like he was doing for a while.
That wouldn't be a terrible idea at all. Yeah, that's absolutely. Great. A series of vignettes. But the backstage segment I saw him though with Lashley tonight, I didn't think that was really it. That felt like, your typical WWE scripted thing.
Well, as Lashley is celebrating, Seth Rollins jumps Lashley and lays him out with the stomp. And this is going to set up a U.S. title match for next week. So title matches are kind of easy to come by. You just have to have the right mode of attack. So if Ali he had just attacked him from behind, he would have had a better shot.
You got to make the guy really angry. So
back from break, Rollins is alone in the ring and said he cleared the ring of Bobby Trashley. Second hour, language is a little restrained. This is the dichotomy we get from AEW, who can no longer say shit, and WWE, who will call a man Bobby Trashley. We got a video of the fight pit coming to the main roster. This is our latest NXT call-up.
That's it. Yeah, absolutely.
Got plenty of Timothy Thatcher in this video of the one and only fight pit match.
Hey man, you built this thing. You built the graphics for this sort of blueprint stuff. You got to make use of it.
They had a
right? Sketch. Yeah, the blueprint. Yeah. What are your thoughts on the fight pit matches that have occurred so far?
I mean, there's only been the one, right?
I thought there have been two.
Maybe I'm forgetting one.
Like Thatcher Riddle, and then
that's the only one I remember.
Riddle, somebody else.
Did him and Damian Priest do one?
Thatcher and Ciampa.
That's right. That's right. They did that one as well. Okay, so they've done two. Yeah, I mean, I like the idea. It was something different. Yeah, it's certainly going to be interesting to see how like the setup is done in the arena this weekend, and how Cormier gets over as well, because there's a lot you have to do, like incorporating Cormier into the story of the match as well, and how the audience takes to it as well, like being, how close they're like working submissions. Yeah. I will say I'm most interested to see Jimmy Smith kind of in his element.
Me too.
To call this type of match. Like he should be the one leaned on for this match. It's his specialty and could really enhance the match for the viewer at home.
Agreed. Yeah.
So Matt Riddle comes out and Rollins jokes he's got no scooter, and Rollins has never been in a fight pit match, and they have a no contact clause where if Riddle touches Rollins, the match is off on Saturday. So Riddle says, I'm not going to just hurt you on Saturday. I'm going to kill you. And then, like any person who threatens death, he then said, I am going to have the crowd singing bro in the style of Seth's theme.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing that so I didn't have to. The exact follow-up you ever want after promising murder on a man. Is that not only that, they're going to hum your theme with my catchphrase. So Rollins says that Daniel Cormier is a fan of mine and asks if Riddle sings his kids to sleep at night, but then remembers that Riddle can't see his kids anymore. And
man, that's that as a comeback to a guy saying people are gonna sing your theme by saying bro, like that's taking it very far. Very quickly.
I thought they went so far here, because then he's got the follow-up. He's like, you're going to need all the cash you can get because I understand child support is expensive. So Riddle is like, dude, when was the last time you won a title? And the crowd's like, ooh, like, oh my God, when was the last time you held a title? Jesus, that's the comeback to child support. And then says, when have you headlined WrestleMania? Oh yeah, you haven't, but your wife has. Oh, you're second to Roman Reigns. You're second to your wife. And on Saturday, you'll be second to me. Oh, I couldn't imagine these were real responses from a real crowd that breathed and ate and slept like normal humans. So then, sensing this argument, Daniel Cormier joins us by satellite. Like he just knew to go live at this moment on the screen.
Looked like FaceTime.
Yeah, and he was ready. Guys. And he did a very good promo here. He respects Riddle and mentions, he's part of the fraternity being in the UFC. And Riddle would say, I don't know if Dana's got me in that fraternity. I don't know about that one.
Yeah, I don't know. If,
yeah. And Seth, he says, I attended WrestleMania and there might be a video of me celebrating your title win. And I'll see you guys this Saturday at Philadelphia. And this was Daniel Cormier cutting as serious a promo as his image looks on the graphic for this match.
I mean, serious, yeah. I have to mention this is a big deal for Cormier. Getting a proper role, appearing on Raw, show that he probably
he's never been on a WWE show, has he?
Not in an actual role.
Like maybe he's been seen in the crowd,
in the
but
fan,
not
in
a featured position. Yeah,
to my
talk
knowledge,
or do anything. He did show up once on a TNA show way back before the 2004 Olympics with King Mo.
That is correct. Yeah. So I imagine this was, maybe something he might have practiced and a whole lot, maybe did a couple takes of. And I thought he came across as somebody who was almost like delivering a promo in the way that an analyst might, presenting, I don't know, a video package perhaps. And it was perfectly fine. It's
this guy, look at him. He is calling this down the middle.
Sure, absolutely. It's exactly what is I think demanded of a man in his role, and he's very good on camera. He got this out fine. So yeah, I thought it was totally cool. This whole segment told you everything you needed to know about the fight pit and who Cormier was.
I would love to hear this guy do commentary for a match.
That's a great idea.
I think he'd be really good on it.
Yeah,
it would be interesting to hear. It will be interesting. If they do anything beyond this. This weekend with Daniel Cormier, it is interesting because he is very much affiliated with ESPN as well. But I mean, for that, I think it's good for UFC too to have him.
How long before Cormier pulls off a Canadian destroyer like every single celebrity seems to when they step into a wrestling ring?
Oh, the Cormier destroyer.
Yeah,
it could be he could be working on it as we speak at AKA. Balor, Asuka, and Bliss wish Candice LeRae luck as the screen wavers, and we see our first of two that I'm aware of QR codes on this show. Wai, I pass it over to you.
Oh, geez, I didn't even see the second one. I imagine it all is the same thing because if it's the second one, I don't have.
When they signed the contract and they pulled up the little folder, there was a QR code on the folder that they put the contract in.
Ah, there you go. Okay, so today's. I would imagine it was the same thing, but I'm actually just gonna maybe bring it up here right now, because there's a lot of stuff in this particular one for this one. So last time when we left off, I mean, I thought I got everything. I didn't even get everything last time, John. On Friday. Turns out there's an image where you can grab it and. There's a phone number attached to the image, and then if you call it, remember how I was joking that you could maybe we'll play backwards stuff now. Have people try playing reading playing things backwards. Turns out there's an audio message from this phone number that somebody were to call if they downloaded this file, and then you have to play the song the file backwards in order to spell out. What is it army code things, and Anyway, so that was one other thing, and it led to a quote from Dante's Inferno, which we'll kind of get referenced. But today, we got a code flashed up on screen, and it took you to a WWE.com website, of course, featuring a painting of Samson and Delilah. Now, who are Samson and Delilah? This comes to us via Google. Delilah, in the Old Testament, the central figure of Samson's last love story, she was a Philistine who bribed to entrap Samson. This is, of course, Samson with the hair. Coaxed him into revealing that the secret of his strength was his long hair, whereupon she took advantage of his confidence to betray him to his enemies. So the person who was responsible for getting Samson's hair cut. So if you hover above this image, you get to see what looks to be a URL. Now, if you just simply type this URL into online, you get nothing. It's an unknown. And that's because it's only half of a URL. The second half of this URL, somebody needs to download on their phone, and somehow credit to It's Wrestle World on Twitter, who says when you download the image onto your mobile phone, it saves as the second half, revealing the second half of the URL. Okay, John?
Yeah.
Of course. It's obvious. Typing the full URL into your browser brings up this image. Now, this image is a continuation of our first image. It is Samson destroying the temple. He was captured, blinded, and enslaved by the Philistines. But in the end, God granted Samson his revenge. Through the return of his old strength, he demolished the great Philistine temple of the god Dagon at Gaza, destroying his captors and himself. Okay, so this is Samson in a fit of rage, destroying everything, including himself. So that's all that. But now let's get back to this, okay? Because the URL of this particular image itself, I believe, revealed what to be coordinates that when you punch in take us to the Wells Fargo Center, site of course, Extreme Rules. Correct. This Saturday. So that is the first thing. Going back to this image, the second image, of course, with the temple, you see a number down below here, 69012092580022. So a simple Google of that brings to us the barcode of White Rabbit candy. This is a Chinese candy. Well, actually, in this case, it seems to be a milk variation, but it's a Chinese candy that I actually grew up on, called White Rabbit candy. And I mean, just a bit of a, I guess, reference to another thing that's called White Rabbit. So there's that. Further on this site from WWE.com, scrolling through the black portion of this website reveals a number of these sort of coded, letters. And it's up to you, John, to not just decipher it, but to figure out what language it even is. And of course, the internet was very quick to point out that it's the Yacht-Ja alphabet from the movie Predator.
I didn't want to spoil it, but I mean, come on.
It's
put
obvious.
2 and 2 together, fans.
Yeah, it's the Yacht-Ja alphabet from the movie Predator, of course. Yeah.
If I can just interject for a second.
Yes, please. Yes, please.
The idea of, if Bray Wyatt is heavily involved in the creation of this, pitching this idea to a prior regime, and I would imagine, yeah, that sounds great. You're going to be wrestling Braun Strowman underwater. That's where we're going to go with this. I mean, could you come up, and you know what? I don't know if I would have been as receptive to someone pitching this concept to me, that I would have been lost along the way too.
I have to imagine there was some degree of creative control that he demanded before answering any sort of phone call, like the guy is not coming back unless he was assured that what had happened the last time was.
How many phone calls before you get to the Yacha language that you're introducing? Like, that's not the first pitch phone call. That's, hey, Paul, just while we're on a roll here, how about this alternate language?
I'm of the opinion that they just give Bray and whoever's working with him on these videos the airtime and the web space to just, here it is. You do whatever you want with it. I'm willing to bet somebody like Triple H, I don't even know if he would know that it went this deep. Okay. I think they have that level of, I would hope that they have that level of trust, because there's nothing on this show that tells me that the same people responsible for making WWE Raw, even right now, is making this. These are the same people that are making the Dexter Loomis Miz story. Okay. They're not coming up with the Yautja predator language to try to spell something. Okay, so back to this. So when you decode this particular message in Yautja language from Predator, what do you get? This comes to us from Toxic Nova 98 on Reddit, as many other people have discovered. The text translates to, "Before me, things created were none, save things. Eternal and eternal I endure. All hope abandoned, ye who enter here," by Dante Alighieri from Inferno. So yet another quote from Dante's Inferno, which was the message that people decoded, or a message from Dante people decoded on
more
Friday.
House of Black teases.
Why?
It's their
Because
finisher.
the move. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Well, they love dark shit. The last thing that people will find, there's more, John, to this, because the last thing people will find when they scroll down from today's teaser is...
That's their goal. Let's kill the third hour. Let's just send as many people off to do homework by the end of hour 2.
Catching up on the rest of the show was a challenge.
I don't know how you
continues
did
to be
this.
a challenge. It's very difficult. Anyway, scrolling down further reveals this, John. Do you know what this is?
I see a sailboat, don't you?
Exactly. Yes. It is a magic eye puzzle. Okay. There are people alive right now who have no idea, who have never been through the phenomenon
These were all the rage.
known as magic eye.
I was never good at these. I always had to lie and be, yeah, I see that. Of course, it's a bicycle.
And that's what we're all doing today, because somehow, some way, people were able to decipher this out of that, John.
What the
MTA4M JI equals. Okay.
Is this the Yacha language?
This is something else. This is
it's a different language.
This is IW,
different code.
Yeah, Internet Smart Mark.
What about the Morse
language
code from a few weeks ago?
We
No
solved
Morse
that.
code? Okay.
No Morse code today. Anyway, so people doing the magic eye were able to identify MTA4MJI equals. People who know the base 64 coding language know that this is part of that. So what happens when you decode MTA4MJI equal sign into base 64 format? You get the number 10822, which of course can be interpreted as October 8th, 2022. The date of Extreme Rules.
It could be.
Could be. Well, what else could it be, John? What do you think? What
Ecclesiastes would say that that particular number,
Ecclesiastes,
if you reverse them all, probably equals in letter form. Could probably spell out something that if you do backwards in a mirror, would probably give away the answer. I will just say that at the end of all of this, if you don't think WWE is tracking all of your information, I mean, you're just crazy because they've got everything. You by the balls.
Yeah. They know my blood type. They know everything. A couple more things here before I get out of here, because I know people will comment on it. But the URL itself, I believe, is in binary today from the QR code, and the binary translates to Gacy, Gacy. And that, of course, could be a reference to NXT's Joe Gacy, or I think more likely John Wayne Gacy. Just a bit of a maybe a way to throw us off here. And then, of course, we have to look into the source code, as we always do now with these Bray Wyatt things. Efficient 4696. At the time of us doing this, I have not seen an answer.
This is the only way that we're going to use the word efficient for these codes.
That is correct. Yeah. Efficient 4696. That's one I don't think the internet has cracked yet. So by the time maybe you're listening to this, maybe that answer's out there, but leave a comment below and let us know if you know it.
Bravo. That was fantastic.
I mean, listen, I think this is coming to a head on Saturday. I
think it needs to. I think we've gone as deep as we could. That was Wai's explanation, thank God, because my recap was QR code appears on the screen.
Ultimately, what we're doing is just drink your Ovaltine. This is we're deciphering a commercial for the next thing, and I have a feeling I don't know if it continues that much further beyond.
Let's say Saturday is the reveal. This comes to a head. It's probably the time to do it. What do you learn from this buildup, and what can be applied for the future? Like, do you think that largely this has been successful? It certainly pulled a number last Friday. I think you have to give this credit for that one number. But in terms like, is this too deep, or do you feel that just this is working for a small audience that it's cool if they're following it, and people can through Reddit and Twitter figure it and piece it along too.
Something of this particular level is catering, I would say, to a very small audience, or at least a small enough audience that would care to jump through all these hoops. However, it tells me that the average, I think, willingness to look deeper into what's in your wrestling content, that capacity is way bigger than I think any wrestling producer has thought. So anybody afraid of adding subtlety, or I don't know, information calling back to things longer that have existed longer than 6 months time in your history, you throw all that out the window, because there's this big, like, your audience is smart. They're as smart as, or at least, like, they're as interested and as willing to do the work as people that study frame by frame all these Marvel things, or any other, Easter egg hunting type of device. So it tells me that, like, I think Triple H, I know to me, Triple H probably isn't responsible for these particular videos. He might have a hand in it, but I also feel like this is the type of online sort of viral marketing that I think he's very much interested in doing. It's stuff that is catering to a younger audience. It's generating great online buzz. And just not even this, but like the stuff, like playing Jefferson Airplane, at a house show to an empty arena, things like that. I mean, all that stuff I think has been wonderful, and it's been fun. I wouldn't put this much time into it if it wasn't fun, even though it's a commercial.
Yeah, and I would say this isn't going to be for everyone, but at the same time, I don't feel it's like isolating people either. Like, I'm not going to dig into all of this, but if this leads to a big return on Saturday, you can get into it just on that level of a character returning, and then the stories begin with his return. This is almost like a bonus. You don't have to dig into this. If you do, though, there's something there for you. I mentioned this last week, I would really love if at the end of all of this, there's some kind of like YouTube video that sort of ties a lot of the clues together. Like you see it in its totality, that it rewards the people that went to all these lengths and maybe missed some things along the way, that there was some coherent narrative to this all these clues. They weren't just random, like, going on a scavenger hunt, but there is some connection to it that all ties in.
Yeah, it demands like incredible involvement from people like us, John, who like do this for a living. And so often I think wrestling has become so predictable in its creation, and like we're going to be talking about 4 distraction finishes in a row coming up, John. So let us have this little moment where that, at least challenges us a bit to learn about the Yelcha language, or like,
it's a lesson that you can certainly go further with things like this. This is the extreme side of things, but we're also coming from a place where we're not going to reference something that happened 2 months ago on TV, because the idea that fans don't remember that. There is some a happy medium that you can certainly go a lot deeper, and you have your fans that will dig that kind of thing, and others that won't. But I don't think they're necessarily on the outside lost either by not engaging in this type of promotion.
Agreed.
The Miz is on the phone, and Ciampa has just disappeared, he notes, and nothing is going to ruin his birthday celebration in Brooklyn next week, and Dexter is lingering behind the door, and Miz never sees him. And then later, we just see Miz unconscious backstage with a photo, or a drawing from Dexter Lumis, and that's all we had of Dexter on the show. So nothing at Extreme Rules, but it looks like the birthday party next week.
Yeah, I don't know how somebody can go from like, doing all of that stuff with the QR code to being remotely interested in this Dexter Lumis Miz thing.
Yeah, it's actually Miz's birthday on Saturday at Extreme Rules. 10/8/22.
There you go.
Then we had Candice LeRae and Dakota Kai. Candice LeRae came out to the wrong graphic that read Dakota Kai. Match began. There was a reverse crossbody by Candice LeRae off the ropes to the floor, so she's not having any issues with her father. Nailed it. Kai then lands a pump kick, scorpion kick, and then a running boot stops her. Crowd came very much down during this match, but then picked up a little towards the end. But we had a German to Kai off the turnbuckle. Io gets on the apron, and Bayley trips Candice on the rope, and Kay gets the roll up, Dakota Kai gets the roll up in 11 minutes and 3 seconds. So Johnny Wrestling and Candice LeRae both taking losses on Monday's Raw.
Yes, both due to distractions from the heels. So
it's very easy to be distracted as newborn parents.
Yeah, you're not getting much sleep. It's
Your faculties are all over the place. You can still hit those reverse cross bodies, but
yeah.
that's the last thing.
Honestly, all the heels would really need to do is play the sound of a baby crying through a baby monitor, and I think that'd be enough to take a loss. Match seemed okay. Yeah.
Johnny Gargano finds The Miz. That's where he's dead. Damage controller in the back, and Bayley explains the importance of having allies, and she's going to come out by herself for the contract signing, but warns Belair that you asked for this. Graphic for Antonio Inoki, and then Otis versus Johnny Gargano. And we had an inset promo with Chad Gable showing old NXT house show footage where he was managing Braun Strowman and had Braun's first match with him.
Interesting. So we're going back, we're digging into NXT.
This is like 2015. Like we're going back like 7 years when Strowman was just starting out, because he was very, very raw when they called him up to the main roster.
So we are not just digging into NXT canon now. We're digging into NXT house show canon. Okay?
Dude, this company films everything. It's all there. It's just a matter of someone finding this stuff.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure they have a tremendous filing system when it comes to just type it Chad Gable, Braun Strowman. NXT house show, August 2015.
I love it. It's a pretty simple way of visually, telling that there's a bit of history between the two.
So we've talked about a lot of wrestlers getting their names back and dropping some of the goofier nicknames. Well, they have given Otis now. He is now the Tree Trunk Otis. Thoughts? They called him this like 5 times during this match. The tree trunk Otis.
Otis, okay.
He's not a human tree yet. So that's a positive from the prior regime. This man would come out, as a tree, but he is the tree trunk Otis.
The tree trunk Otis. Yeah, I don't know if that's quite as good as a freaking or I don't know. Maybe it's more marketable than Dozovich. He can sell little trees, bonsai trees, perhaps.
Yeah, I didn't see Otis being the, that could be his finisher, the bonsai tree.
Nice.
So he uses a Canadian backbreaker on Gargano. Gargano lands a DDT counter, and then tornado DDT on the floor. Gable distracts the referee as Theory nails Gargano with the briefcase into a World's Strongest Slam. Otis wins in 540, and then it's a 3-on-1 attack with Braun running down for the big pop, shoulder tackling Otis on the way down. But yes, another distraction finish.
It's not that, Johnny Gargano is supposed to beat everybody and that we should be protecting his win streak or something, but I also feel like his first loss in this run at least should be significant, and this was about as insignificant as you could get. Distraction finish leading to another match of which he's not involved even in the program of at all. So yeah, I wasn't a big fan of this.
And no Kevin Owens on the show either, so he wasn't with Gargano and Braun Strowman on this show. We go right into the next match with Braun and Gable, and Gable's wrestling in his home state. At one point, uses a bridging German on Braun Strowman, and then slaps Braun, tells him not to embarrass him in his state, and we get a low angle shot of Omos and MVP watching in the back.
Seemed to be our first visual connection between the two.
Right. Yes. This was after the commentary deal with MVP last week, but this further pushing that. All I can say is, dear Saudi Arabia, Braun and Otis. I mean, that's got to be where they do this, right?
The match would get over there certainly, and I think it would get over in plenty of places in North America as well. It's they will plan it so that it gets over. All you need is one guy picking up the other.
That's about it, and I think this could be. It would be very interesting what the next few months are like for one Omos. But Braun lands a boot, power bomb, and he pins Gable in 7:08.
Easy win, it's a showcase for Braun.
Yeah. Gable looked good in this. I mean, the bridging German was rather impressive.
They had Otis attack him beforehand to try to set Braun up as the underdog, and tells you a lot about, I think, maybe how good Gable is to be able to convincingly play heel at least temporarily for a Braun Strowman.
Yeah, this man screams underdog on the left.
Yeah.
Bobby Lashley doesn't want help from the trainer for his arm.
You saw Brandon that video.
Gibson in. It's no, my arm's good.
Yeah.
He says he is going to crush Seth Rollins' throat and take away his cackle and then finish him after the fight pit. So Riddle's going to murder him on Sunday, and then 24 hours later, his throat will be crushed. So, dude, Rollins has an extremely busy 48-hour period this coming weekend.
You better rest up.
Glad he gets Sunday off. So this will be next Monday in Brooklyn. Lashley against Seth Rollins. To me, it is a little weird that we're doing like this big, brutal fight pit match on Saturday, and then he's coming back 2 days later and doing this. But I guess they want a big match with Rollins on Monday.
We know in the past we would have not had this match even planned a week in advance, John. So I think they're trying to at least, do us the favor of promoting the big match coming up the next week. And this is the case. So do you think we can get a title change next week or no?
Maybe Bobby's going to get caught in that Peruvian necktie.
Okay. All right. Yes. All the MMA training. Sure.
Corey Graves is hosting what he calls a historic contract signing. I was looking for more details on this. It turns out they called this the first ladder match for a women's championship in WWE history.
It surprises me. Okay. So we're not counting NXT, right? Have we had ladder matches in NXT?
We've definitely had ladder matches in NXT.
Ladder matches for championships.
That's a great question.
Interesting. Is that so?
I did not do a thorough research on this. It sounded like a crazy stat.
Okay, we've had the Scareway to Hell NXT Women's Tag Team Championship match.
I guess the Money in the Banks don't count as championship matches, I guess.
We've had number one contenders women's ladder matches. But okay.
We had that Becky and Charlotte match with the was it Becky and Charlotte against the Kabuki Warriors?
Or was it the ladder?
That was with a ladder.
I'll take their word for it.
All right.
Sure. Historical.
Yeah. It's historic. It's historic. Not a historic match on Saturday, a historic contract signing.
Well, no, I mean, that's come on, the main event here.
So Bayley explains that it's Belair's ego that got her into this. Bayley is thinking big picture. The ladder is symbolic for her entire WWE career. Unlike Belair, I've had to climb and climb to try to get to the top. And she used to be Bianca Belair, complete with the ponytail and sequins. And the signs the crowd used to bring read Bayley. And they had their headbands and ponytails to the side. Then the signs changed and the cheers faded. I mean, I think that's because people got smartphones. No one's bringing signs to TV anymore, are they?
Sure they are. You see Braden and Davey at AEW that time?
That's true. They gave up on me and stopped caring, and her career began to spiral, and she had to do something to climb back to the top. Belair just cuts her off, signs the contract. This is where you had the QR code on the folder there, the case. And Belair says Bayley was pretending to be someone she's not. That's why it didn't work with the fans. Belair is real and authentic, and that's why the fans connect with me. Bayley didn't evolve. You just became who you really are. And congratulates her on having this grand plan for the past year. And they cut to the back where Damage Control has attacked Asuka and Bliss. And then Bayley jumps Belair. But Belair fights her off, rams her into the apron. And we go to the back. Belair makes it there. And Asuka's knee has been placed through a chair. And she is screaming as Bliss looks angrily into the camera like she's Ms. Girl and challenges IYO SKY for later tonight.
Mm-hmm. Just getting back to maybe the contracts, the historic contract signing itself. I thought the retort from Bianca was really strong. I enjoyed the story that both of them told us here, drawing the connections between the two. And I guess in some ways, Bayley did used to be the Bianca Belair because she also had a ponytail lying to one side. They're at least making an attempt at drawing some deeper connection between the two, and I think there's at least some truth there. But Bianca's retort about saying how you can never compare yourself to me because you're not as good as me, but also because you were pretending to be somebody else, whereas now you get to be your true self. I love that. I love that little bit of I think, to her at least, babyface logic, heel logic. And then this beatdown, they seem to be setting up an injury for Asuka. Do you think it leads to anything more significant than just somebody working with an injured leg?
Yeah, I mean, they certainly went out of their way to emphasize this. I mean, she got involved later in the match, so it wasn't like they were keeping her away from everything. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if she's actually working through something but certainly this feels like an angle designed to, she has a knee injury, but not to the case where this was done, where this felt like a write-off for her disappearing or something like that.
Yeah. I guess I just, in my mind, like, well, she doesn't even have a match, right?
No.
So she doesn't even have to be there. So they could be at a person disadvantage. And one thing I failed to mention earlier was the QR code landed, I mean, pretty much kind of right on Alexa. Also, Samson and Delilah, it could very much allude to the relationship that Bray had with Alexa, because it was, of course, wasn't it Alexa that like sent Bray off or like betrayed Bray or something? So I'm expecting a big Bray Wyatt spot. Maybe in the ladder match or whatever match Alexa might be getting involved in potentially.
Solo Sikoa versus Angelo Dawkins. So Sikoa was in control for a lot of this match, including putting a grip on the dreaded trapezius muscle of Angelo Dawkins. And this match was kind of just chugging along for a while. And then Sikoa is tackled and gets sent to the floor, and Zayn's checking on him. And Jay steps in saying, "I've got this." So Zayn and Jay start arguing. Jimmy's in between, allowing Dawkins to hit a tope con hero that Zayn gets out of the way and the Usos get hit by. And as Dawkins rolls into the ring, he's hit with a spinning heel kick and the spinning solo as Sikoa wins in 12 minutes and 4 seconds.
Yeah. Anytime you have a lot of people around the ring, even if one of them happens to be injured, a distraction finish is coming, and that's what you continue to have here. I would prefer if they actually kind of kept, this wonderful Sammy Solo Usos thing from not appearing on every single show, because it definitely takes out some of the freshness from it. And you sometimes get segments like this that felt pretty inconsequential.
They feel like the main players on SmackDown, and they feel like total bit players on Monday. Like this was just like a background story that was going on one of many on Raw. My issue with this match, I didn't think this was like the smoothest, but it was like 5 minutes into this, and I'm thinking like, what is going to... This started at like around 10:15, and I'm realizing this third hour is going to be this match and Alexa Bliss against IYO SKY for the rest of the third hour. And nothing against these four, but for the third hour, like these were impromptu matches put together during the show. Everything that was advertised was done. This felt like a 2-hour show, and we're just going to throw the rest for hour 3, knowing that this is our dip down hour and it's just riding out the hour. That's what hour 3 felt like for me. This was a 2-hour show, and a good 2-hour show.
Yeah. Yeah, having sort of like non-promoted ahead of time matches in the third hour, does that tell you something about maybe the way they're booking? They booked this particular show versus like what they were doing before in light of increased competition? Like,
this one to me, like they didn't even advertise like we're going to hear from Edge in the third hour. Like that to me was the most notable thing in the third hour, and they didn't even announce that. Like to me, that would have been the most significant thing in the third hour to promote. Like you'll hear from Edge, and they didn't do that. Like I don't know, it just felt like a third hour that it was just finish the show and we'll just fill it with wrestling, and just that was that. Theory was with Otis. They dragged Gable in. Next week, it will be Austin Theory against Johnny Gargano in Brooklyn. Edge promo, he did a very good kind of go-home promo here for Extreme Rules. He says, this version of him is pretty much Adam. The veil of character has been dropped, which was kind of odd. It's like, this is pretty much me. It's a bit of a character, but it's mostly me you're getting.
Right, yeah.
I can say on this show, you get 100% John Pollock. There's no character here. Yeah.
Good.
So anyway, a bit of an odd line within the body of the show, but nonetheless, he was told at 37 he was done, but he came back at 46, and this has become more difficult. He's not asking for sympathy, but it's taking a toll on his entire family. He sees the fear and doubt in Beth's eyes, and Judgment Day have made it more difficult, and it's his fault the group even exists. But he knows that when his back is against the wall, he comes out swinging. And you can ask Mick Foley, Undertaker, Cena, Orton, and Balor is not facing someone he's ever faced before. You cannot physically hurt me enough to quit, and you better be ready for war on Saturday.
He sounded great. Sounded excellent. You know, the man earned his stay home if he's going to deliver like quality like this with his promos. It didn't look like Philadelphia to me. It looked just like his ring back home, but it's perfectly fine.
I mean, the show's like almost sold out. I mean, how much promotion? What are you really doing at this point? I mean, it's
That's right.
It's good.
Yeah,
it's in good hands.
Great promo from Edge here.
Very, very good. Yeah, I enjoyed it. Adam and Edge, great promo. Next week on the Brooklyn show, Roman Reigns and the Bloodline, Bobby Lashley against Seth Rollins for the U.S. title, Johnny Gargano against Austin Theory, and the DX reunion of Triple H, Shawn Michaels, X-Pac, and Road Dogg.
I'm kind of looking forward to it, that segment.
This is the first time that we'll see Paul Levesque on television since, taking over this role. So yeah, I imagine they're going to have a lot of fun with this segment, and we'll probably get as much time as they feel like it.
We get an AEW reference? So we might get a Billy Gunn reference. Do we get an AEW reference?
I think possible. Yeah, I'm sure they're just going to riff off each other, and it will be yeah, we'll see. We'll see what they do. But I'm sure it'll be a fun segment. Alexa Bliss and Bianca Belair was the main event. Sky missed the over the moonsault and is hit with a DDT. So Bayley distracts the referee, which I think I've said multiple times tonight. Belair goes after her. Dakota Kai gets involved and Belair is sent into the steps. Bliss hits a somersault off the apron to both on the floor, but comes back, air raid crash over the moonsault by IYO, and she wins clean. And as clean as this sounds in 9 minutes and 20 seconds. There was plenty of involvement from those outside.
Yeah. I mean, if there were at least 2 moves between the distraction and the finish, I suppose you can classify it as a clean finish.
Yeah. This was Misawa Kawada.
A lot of aggression from Alexa early on for the getting revenge on Asuka. They continue to push these as sort of a faction wars, and I imagine that's very much done for War Games looking ahead of this, but. You can expect a lot of involvement from everybody in the main event as well for this ladder match because they're by default no DQ, aren't they? So, yes. Do we get a title change?
I'll say no. That'll be my guess.
I am going to say no too. Bianca's just doing so well with it right now, and it doesn't feel like it's a hot enough program just yet, for a title change.
So, unless you want it on the heel, if you're of the belief like Sasha Banks is coming back and having someone to chase, like maybe, maybe it's Sasha like in a singles role. I mean, that would make sense if you want to do the turn at this point. But it was 10:55. I was like, what are they going to do for 5 more minutes? So Damage Control beat up Bliss. They brought out a ladder. They beat up Belair. Asuka limps down to the ring with a kendo stick. They beat her up. Then they place Bliss between the ladder and kick the legs into her. The babyfaces just get destroyed. Rose plant to Belair, Rose plant to Bliss. They did not hit it onto Asuka. She just lay there, essentially. And the ladder is placed over Belair. Bayley climbs up, grabs the women's belt as you have Sky and Kai on either side with the tag titles, and they hoist them up to go off the air. So we get Dynamite that it's like to the last second that some of these matches go until, and then it's boom, we're done. And it was like 5 minutes of just attacking and murdering the baby faces.
Well, Dynamite this week is going to go extra 15.
That's right. We get 15 more minutes of Dynamite on Wednesday.
Yeah. No, this was definitely a third hour that felt like it was a bit more of a drag than usual when they promoted like big main events for the third hour. I still get to enjoy, like, I think what to me is a like productive edition of Raw heading into Extreme Rules. I think they did a good job explaining Fight Pit and giving some presence to Daniel Cormier ahead of that particular match. Dominik and Ray, everything just kind of moved along there. What else we got here? That was notable.
I thought of the go home segments, like the Edge promo, Rollins and Riddle together, and then you also had the contract signing. Like, I thought they did a really good job of pushing the key Raw matches for Saturday, which tonight's show, that was the purpose of it. I don't know if any of the matches were kind of the stellar variety of some that we've seen over the past month on Raw, but I thought that in terms of the goal of the show of pushing, they did a very good job. Promoting Extreme Rules as more than just a B show on Saturday. It is a B show, but I think they placed a lot of added importance onto the show with the different programs.
And you're not wrong about um, Otis, because even on his WWE.com preview, Johnny Wrestling goes head to head with the Tree Trunk Otis.
Yeah,
In quotations right there. So that seems to be an official nickname, at least.
that one's going to stick with him. The tree trunk.
Hmm.
All right. Well, we will open it up now to super chats and feedback before we sign off for this historic edition of Raw.
Yeah, let's go to, as always, we allow patrons the ability to leave feedback at forum.postwrestling. That's not it. Forum.postwrestling.com, where you can leave feedback right now to WCW's Great American Bash 1996. Do you have memories of the show? Do you did you watch it recently? Did you want to ask any questions for John Pollock? As always, you can do that there. But tonight, WWE Raw. Shall I start?
Yes.
We got a Hernice from Long Island who says the best part of the show was a segment with the Bloodline. I think Solo is supposed to stay stoic, but Sammy broke him and had him laughing. Maybe. Not sure if tonight is for AEW talk, but any worries with the capacity size shows that they are running? Outside of new places like Seattle and Toronto and the New Jersey shows, the rest are 2.5K to 4K. Are they blocked by WWE to run bigger arenas? Or they know there's oversaturation in these parts, so let's run shows we can fill out. Okay. Any thoughts on the capacity limits that AEW shows seem to be running at 2,500 to 4,000? This person says.
I mean, there's no doubt that when you look at the advances for these shows coming up, that AEW has cooled off when it comes to these tickets. It's the exceptions that go against the overall trend that we're seeing, like outside of as you mentioned, Seattle and Toronto. So I don't know what your easy answer is, if it now is your excuse to start exploring other markets, or kind of addressing like what is turning people away, where they're not coming back at the same numbers that they were prior. Like you saw Philadelphia last week, like they were down. Like you're seeing these trends now where people are not coming back. Do you have an overall thought of, because that to me is like the root cause. Like you can come up with different reasons and go to different markets where they might be more hungry, but these are markets that Boston got off to a weak start last week. Like that's been a very good market for them. And, it's more than just like one specific show here or there. Like it is a trend.
I think not having Punk around, and not just, based off of recent controversy, but because of the injury from, the earlier in the year, that probably hurt things. I imagine like his addition to a lot of these bills would have been pretty significant in terms of hype difference, maybe just even attention on the show in general. Maybe there's something to like, the increased competition from WWE actually being, pretty like critically well reviewed these days.
Yep.
But I don't think it affects it that much, personally speaking.
It wasn't brought up anywhere that I saw, but last week they were in Philadelphia, and that's where Extreme Rules is this Saturday, and Extreme Rules has done tremendously well. So I mean, like there probably is some thought to that, but we saw the opposite last year when you had AEW doing really well in New York, and you had WWE, really ramping up their Garden show and then Survivor Series last year, and you had this huge concentration of shows in the New York market.
Yeah, let's also keep in mind, we are in the midst of very difficult financial times, and maybe sort of luxury items like, buying tickets to go out to see a wrestling show is not top of mind for a lot of people, especially when they've already seen that event or that promotion before. So it could be all those things, but I think in general, it just might be a period where the project doesn't seem as hot as it did perhaps a year ago with all the new additions.
Yeah, I think it is certainly something that I think you should be paying a lot of attention to, because there is sort of a perception with AEW. And I thought Brandon Thurston brought up, like, to me, that is something worth digging into, and that is seeing we were there in Buffalo, and when Tony Khan appeared on the screen, this was fresh off of All Out, but he was booed, and you have heard live reports of people that like Tony Khan, like the inclination is to boo. And like when you look a bit deeper, like what are fans booing? Because this is like Tony Khan is AEW. Like what is there more of a negative sentiment towards AEW than there was 3 or 4 months ago?
Yeah.
Like, are they still the cool alternative brand? Has that sort of been compromised over the last few months? Because, the hot thing now is like WWE has taken some of that cool factor away from them.
Yeah, it's true. But at the same time, if you're going to AEW, you're paying money to see an AEW show. I don't necessarily think you're going to rebel, like to voice your displeasure with the product itself. In the same way that I don't necessarily think, when WWE audiences go to see WWE, they're not booing Vince. If anything, they're cheering Vince.
They did cheer that MJF promo. Granted, it was a phenomenal promo, but the content of that post Double or Nothing promo was, this place sucks, and Tony Khan's a mark, and this crowd went nuts for that promo.
But the AEW audience, I think, recognizes that as a gimmick. Like, I think if there's any negative sentiment towards Tony, it's the fact that somehow he let this Punk elite thing get to the point that it's gotten to, and perhaps maybe some, feelings of him just standing by and not doing something at the press conference, perhaps. I also think he doesn't do himself any favors, like when he comes out screaming, and maybe even going to the media and proclaiming like shenanigans. It obviously has a right to believe it, but he doesn't look great when he's like, so up in arms, complaining. So I don't know. It could be some of that, but I also maybe don't think it's as like big as people don't dislike AEW. Like, people might not be as high on it as they were, but I think that's just the nature of this wonderful shiny new toy that we have that's not so shiny anymore. And then maybe they'll polish it up later and it'll be shiny again later.
Yeah, I think it's an area to address. I don't know if you're getting to a critical stage, but it's something certainly to be looking at, just in terms of your, just returning to these markets and what is the demand going back, for what had been reliable markets over these 3 years. But anyway, we go to one more here, and that is from Matthew, who writes, DX versus the Bloodline, War Games. I don't know about that one happening. They are sure beating Rey Mysterio like a drum these days. I understand wanting to build a feud against Dominik, but there has to be better use for Rey. I think he's involved in a pretty deep story that they've got going on, and I think you're seeing it go week to week, and I don't think it's a detriment to Rey. He's involved in a program that's designed to be getting his son over, and I'm sure he is all on board for this. I mean, he's sort of been positioned in this kind of elder statesman role, and that's the position he is in.
Think about it, okay? If your son turned on you, your son is with your enemies. He's telling you to hit him at every single town you travel to. By the way, he's traveling alone. Okay. He's he probably sees Dominik. They're both, I assume Dominik still lives in San Diego. He's probably seeing Dominik at the airport, hanging out with Judgment Day, while Rey has to eat a cold cut sandwich by himself. He's sad. Okay. And then when you're sad, you're not on your game all the time. You're going to lose some matches. So I think it's all part of a bigger story. And I'm sure if you ask Rey Mysterio, imagine going to work and getting to finally a significant storyline for you and your son. I doubt that he'd be complaining too much.
All right, that's going to wrap up Rewind to Raw. Wai and I are back Tuesday night for Post Wrestling Cafe members with Rewind to Wai number 117. We are going to be chatting WCW's Great American Bash from 1996, going through that entire pay-per-view. And then we will also be chatting the news from that week in June of 1996. We're going to talk about the ratings that week between Nitro and Raw. Titan Sports making legal threats regarding Kevin Nash and Scott Hall's involvement in WCW. Some drama between Vader and the Ultimate Warrior at WWE house shows. We're also going to be talking about some big arrivals in WWE because, folks, TL Hopper's coming in. We've got plenty of notes as well about the Great American Bash and some promos that, let's say, don't age so well in... I would say it didn't age well in 1996, and I don't know how 2022 would think about them either.
Yeah, I think I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
So that is all coming up on Tuesday night, and dare I guess that Wai has tackled this show already?
I have 1 hour left.
Okay, that's not too bad. That's manageable.
Manageable.
But that's going to wrap up Rewind to Raw. Thanks to everybody for joining us. We are live here every Monday night, immediately after Raw, and immediately after Dynamite, which will have a start time 10:20, we will go live, just 5 minutes after the plus-sized edition of Dynamite this Wednesday night. So that is all. Postwrestling.com for all your latest news, and postwrestlingcafe.com to support Post Wrestling.
We should announce one last thing.
Oh my God. Yeah,
Hey,
the thing that was supposed to be our first announcement.
If you've stuck around this long, okay, and if you live in the Toronto area, I should preface it by saying that first. And if you're going to AEW Dynamite on Wednesday, we are going to do a little bit of an informal meetup, and we're going to do it near the Coca-Cola Coliseum at the Tim Hortons in Liberty Village. So just simply Google Liberty Village Tim Hortons. It'll take you right there. John and I will probably be there from like 5 o'clock onwards just to drink our coffees and just to kind of say hi to whoever shows up. It's completely informal, costs nothing. You don't even have to buy a coffee if you don't want to. We just want to say hi. We just want to meet a bunch of you guys and, hang out before the show. So if you're a patron, listen to tomorrow's Rewind Away. I'm actually going to give you guys a code. And if you tell us the code, I might even give you some prizes in the form of stickers, pins, t-shirts, something like that. So at the very least, if you aren't a patron and you just show up, I'll probably give you a coffee sleeve to use for your Tim Hortons coffee. So show up Wednesday, 5 p.m. Eastern time, Liberty Village, Tim Hortons.
It is going to be the most sober tailgate party you have ever attended on Wednesday, October 12th, around 5 p.m. by the Tim Hortons. There's a big area that we can all chill out at, and it'll be, as Wai said, very informal, and hope to see many of you that are going to the Toronto show. And it is a 5-minute walk to the Coca-Cola Coliseum, so very easy walking distance to the Coca-Cola Coliseum.
And there are plenty of bars around, too, if you want to drink some of those other beverages after.
Well, I mean, Brandon from New Jersey will probably be 5 deep by the time Tim Hortons rolls around. But there you go. Add that to your itinerary, and we will remind you throughout the week. That is it, and thank you for tuning in to Rewind a Raw.